Hi everybody, this is Lee, and I'm reporting on an interview I saw at Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman and Greenwald of The Intercept. And it's regarding Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, the fact that the Trump administration wants to arrest Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. They want to serve him with an arrest warrant and then arrest him and I guess extradite him and all kinds of things like that. And this is being discussed, and the reasons being Julian Assange's publication of classified documents leaked to him by Chelsea Manning. They're trying to connect Julian Assange with actually directing Chelsea Manning to do that. And then also the interference, as they call it, or as it's claimed, that WikiLeaks interfered with the Democratic National Committee and therefore the Democratic primary, the election, all that stuff in 2016 at the direction of the Russian government. So many things that they've come up with. And so it's caused supposedly unification on the left and the right, these issues, kind of undermining the support base of Julian Assange that might have come from either the left or the right. Instead, they're trying to hopefully gather enough support to where Julian Assange does not have that kind of political friendlies on either side. So anyway, Glenn Greenwald is pretty alarmed by this, and he's written about it at The Intercept, and he's telling Amy Goodman now that the danger in this is that this is the administration, meaning the Trump administration, where the president himself has said the U.S. media is the enemy of the American people, and that this prosecution against Julian Assange would enable our own administration to not only prosecute and imprison Julian Assange, but as a whole use that justification against a whole variety of other journalists and media outlets that also routinely publish classified material or information from the U.S. government. So what is done to Julian Assange might be done to other journalists who do similar things. And so Glenn Greenwald explains this concept very clearly and in a way that can actually be applied to many other situations besides journalism. And so what he says is that in general, governments try to harness core freedoms because what they know is that if they target a group or a person that's popular or an idea that people agree with, there will be uprising against that attempt to constrict that freedom. So what governments generally try to do is constrict the freedom of speech or something like that, pick somebody that they know is hated in society and who expresses an idea, and then try to abridge the freedom of that particular person, that freedom of speech, in that case against that hated group. And then more people will allow their hatred of that person or that group or that idea that is hated, they will allow that hatred to overcome the last remaining barrier against the abridgment of freedom in general. And so the constriction of that freedom then becomes institutionalized, and then it becomes something that's entrenched in society. And then that way, when the government decides, you know what, we're not just going to target this person, we're going to target everyone, all of your targets now. And then it's too late because people have laid down for the first instance. And so groups like the ACLU generally step in, and they often defend these types of groups who have their rights constricted. And so this is the case with Julian Assange, that Glenn Greenwald is fearful that, okay, Julian Assange, he's a scapegoat. People want to blame him for this problem, that problem, this problem, and that he's raised up many inconvenient truths about the nature of U.S. society, and then also the oligarchy all around the world, like with these trade deals. He's revealed a lot of different things. And so now he's a target. And people are saying, like, yeah, okay. And then, but what about the New York Times? What about the Washington Free Beacon? What about the Washington Post or Chicago Tribune, when they publish information that's inconvenient or embarrassing, but it's truthful and it reveals to the public what the public needs to know? And because Julian Assange was not defended, why would the Chicago Tribune feel like it should be defended when it becomes a target of the Trump administration? I mean, we've seen the scenario played out, like even with the drug laws, where certain groups are targeted, and people were fine with that because they are criminals. And then it became entrenched. These mandatory minimums, the escalation of misdemeanors all the way up to felonies by adding on different things. It became entrenched. Shootings in the streets, extrajudicial killings, things like that, until people were, afraid to say something because it became accepted. And then all of a sudden the floodgates open and everybody was the target. And, drug laws are being enforced everywhere, not just in some places. And people are getting their lives ruined. And so this is one way something like this becomes entrenched. And so Glenn Greenwald is saying, we have to look at this very carefully, this targeting of Julian Assange, because if Julian Assange is targeted, there's nothing saying that any other journalist, which is what WikiLeaks is, a publishing site that, publishes materials like the New York Times, like the Chicago Tribune, like the Washington Free Press Beacon, that we have to be careful of things like this, and what the Trump administration is attempting to do, not just with Julian Assange, but how will they apply that to other publications that decide to publish information that's truthful but inconvenient for the Trump administration? How will they respond? With arrest warrants, or what do we think if Donald Trump considers the press to be an enemy? Good luck.